How long have you been investing in real estate?
I started buying real estate in 2016. What sparked my interest about real estate? Well, I think because our family is Chinese. When your family is Chinese and they make money, they put it in either two things, gold or real estate. That was traditionally how things was back in the days. Real estate is the best asset class, in my opinion. It's a tangible asset, first of all. A lot of these assets that you buy is an intangible asset, something like crypto, almost based like on a mental construct. In real estate, there is actual, true, practical application. During COVID, when everybody thought the world was going to end, the ultimate hedge was to own land. No one can question that. What you can do with the land is endless. You can build a factory on it. You can put a home on it and live in it. You can grow food on it. Currencies were going to devalue. Everything else was going to go into the gutter, into the toilet. The one asset you can really depend on was land. Just so they were protected during the COVID time in case there was a food shortage or if the whole entire society went nuts, they had their own sort of safe haven. That tells you a lot about the true value of an asset. And I don't think you can beat that.
A lot of your new content was focused on Japan. What sparked your interest in Japan specifically?
I was interested in Japan many years ago, back in 2017. I did research on 25 different countries, and I ranked all those countries on criteria that were important to me. These countries based on investability, the investment potential, the tourism factor, government stability, and lifestyle. And so when I factored that in, I gave it an ultimate score. The countries were Portugal, Japan, Chile. I think Canada made the mix. Those are the top four. As a foreigner, you can own land in Japan, which is great because I'm not able to do that here in the Philippines. A lot of Asian countries have a protectionism law, doesn't allow foreigners to own land. The interesting thing about the Japanese real estate market is the valuation is more weighted towards land than it is in the building. For example, in the US, the building valuation is approximately 80% to 20% land valuation. In Japan, it's almost reversed. It's more like 60 or 70% is based on the land valuation and the rest is based on the building valuation. The challenge with Japan is that as a foreigner, you really need to rely on local partners there. Do keep in mind, you are very reliant on these people. You ever have a problem with people managing your property and you need to switch, it's not going to be easy. You're going to need to fly to Japan and spend quite a significant amount of time developing new relationships with people.
Now, what's the goal for John Day? How much property do you want to own in the next 10 years?
I think my goal is to hit $100 million in real estate assets. I've been buying real estate since 2016, and now I think my property portfolio is worth between 11 and $12 million. I bought properties in cash. I didn't want to have debt, partially because I was buying properties overseas, so qualifying for bank loans was much more difficult, but I wasn't really open to the idea until I started buying properties in the US where I was able to leverage those. And if I had leveraged all the properties from the beginning, my property valuation would probably be worth a lot more today, maybe even double. Making my first $1 million took me a lifetime to do almost, right? But once I hit $1 million, it was easy to hit $2 million. Once I made $2 million, it was easy to hit 5 million. 5 million to 10 million was a matter of making the right investment decisions. So when you're at that stage, it's easier to grow and double your net worth. I realized that real estate was the best way to grow my net worth, the safest and the most steadiest way to grow my net worth.
What is the advantage of using finance to buy a property instead of paying with outright cash?
There's really two very important parts to this. The best way I can explain to you is by giving you an example. Let's say you have 100,000 US dollars and you want to buy a property in cash. Well, you can only buy that property at $100,000. So in 5 years, that property is going to be worth $200,000. You would have net $100,000, and now you're worth $200,000. If you take that same example and you leveraged it, and let's say you took the same $100,000, took a $400,000 loan on it, which is an 80% loan to value, you could buy $500,000 house, right? And if you waited the same 5 years, now your $500,000 house went from $500,000 to $1 million. You netted $500,000 instead of $100,000. In general, real estate valuation appreciates, and you can expect real estate to double between 5 to 10 years in most real estate markets. And so when you play that game, it's pretty powerful. Now you can understand why my property portfolio would have been worth a lot more had I started with leveraging those properties. If you think about it, what other businesses or industries where you could take a loan, you can leverage up 4 or 5 times the capital that you put in, like you can in real estate? Okay, the second part of why it's important to do bank financing is the tax write-offs. Let's take the same $100,000 house. You put in a $100,000 down payment for a $500,000 house. The building value of the house appreciated over, say, 20 plus years, depending on the market you're in. In the US, I believe the building value can be depreciated over 28 years. Well, that depreciation is a tax write-off you can use every year. And then you add that with the interest expense that you pay, that is also a tax write-off. So essentially, the rental income you make should be paying for the cost of the mortgage. Yeah, that's the power of leverage.
What else have you learned since then that has the same effect?
So one of the biggest tricks I learned through real estate investment is bigger is better. Size matters. It matters a lot, actually. The economy of scales is much different when you own multiple properties. If you're owning one property, the cost is pretty high. You're lucky to generate any cash flow on a small property. But on like a 20, 50, or 100 unit property, you can hire your maintenance guys full-time. You can hire your cleaners full-time, and that's gonna drive down your costs significantly. And so it's very hard for people, investors in the US, to cash flow positive because of the high expenses it costs to run a property. So I read a lot of your comments and I pick up a few things that maybe I would want to do in my next video. So do leave a comment and let me know what you guys are interested in talking about. And maybe I'll talk about it in my next video. Like and subscribe, share it with your friend, and make sure you donate to me on your Patreon. I don't have a Patreon, by the way.